Hi, let's begin part 3 of Curriculum 101. What is the process that you need to follow? Well, the process depends on what you're trying to do. Are you trying to create a new course? Are you revising an existing course? Are you creating a new program? Or are you revising an existing program? New courses. When you get an idea for a new course, first of all, keep a few principles in mind. Be aware of the time. Deadlines are super important. Communication is vital. I'm talking about communication, particularly across campuses. And it's all got to fit somewhere. First of all, being aware of the time. The process of writing curriculum may take a lot longer than you first imagine. I hear stories of faculty saying in fall that they have a new course idea that they want to offer in spring. It's very hard not to break out into peals of laughter. That's not happening. There are potential difficulties and complications virtually every step along the way, so plan on needing plenty of time, typically 2 years. Okay, let me say that again. Be thinking in terms of 2 years, and sometimes 3. Also, most of our curriculum has to be reviewed at City and Miramar after it leaves Mesa, therefore before it goes to CAC. That adds to the timelines. Communication is vital within your department, with your chair, with your school dean. And if you're in an aligned program, as most of our programs are, it can potentially affect Miramar and City. Many programs can be avoided beforehand by consulting with colleagues at our sister colleges. And remember, it's all got to fit somewhere. Courses should not be standalone. They need to be in programs, and of course, programs need to have courses. Consider issues such as student need, program needs, changes or trends in curriculum, both nationally and locally, and of course, money. Courses that are not at the basic skill or associate level, but non-transfer, will have to articulate, meaning the four-year institutions that our students transfer to will accept the course for credit. Okay? This is, again, I know I'm repeating myself. I said this a number of times already. Please speak with our articulation officer, Juliet Parker, early in the process. Curriculum in the CTE areas is often guided by licensing or outside accrediting agencies. This is one reason why CTE courses are in 2-year review, because the laws and regulations are constantly changing. CTE faculty must keep abreast of the changes in their fields. It is vital. So we've talked about the course outline of record a number of times. So what is in this course outline? Right, so in our district, we break it up into basically the course outline and what we call the course report, which is not an official part of the COR, but it is something that we generate. The following are in the course outline. The title of the course. Choose something brief but descriptive. It should be unique. In other words, we do not want to have 2 courses with the exact same title. I know we still do have a few outliers where that happens, but as they are coming through for review, we want to make sure those are changed. We do not want to have 2 courses with the exact same title. That makes no sense. There will be a subject indicator, a 4-letter subject indicator, such as ENGL for English or MATH for math. If you need, sometimes we create new subject indicators, right? So that they're not set in stone. And they need a unique number, okay? So if you have a subject area that has, quite frankly, a lot of courses, sometimes it can be very difficult. You cannot use a number from a deactivated course because, believe it or not, somebody took those courses way back when and they may come back and need the credit for it. Unit value. Obviously, our courses have units. They are typically lecture or lab units. One lecture unit is 16 to 18 hours. 2 is 32 to 36. 3 is 48 to 54 hours a week. Lab hours are 3 times that. 48 to 54, 96 to 108. Sometimes units are combined, so you have a lecture lab. Units can be earned in half-unit increments as well. There are a small, very, very small number of courses with unit counts below half, but that's very, very rare in our district. Grading options are important to consider. Letter grade, or could this class have a pass, no pass option as well? That's something to think about. The catalog course description, very, very important. This description begins with a general statement about what the course is going to teach. Use present tense verbs, not the future tense. Don't write students will study, but say students study. The last sentence of the description should be an audience statement, that is, which group or groups of students should take the course. The entire description should typically run no longer than 4 sentences. There are a few that are longer. Keep in mind that this is what goes in our catalog. This is what is visible to the public when reading about our courses. So make sure it's exactly what you want. Requisites. Maybe your course requires prerequisites. Maybe you have co-requisites. In keeping with AB 705, we're attempting to eliminate basic skills prerequisites from courses whenever possible. Prerequisites within the subject are still permitted. So obviously you may have within a subject area a sequence where you need to take certain courses before you take other courses. That's still permitted, of course. But we are trying to limit our use of basic skills prerequisites in the spirit of AB 705. Field trip requirements usually just say may be required even if you have no intention of ever doing a field trip. Transfer applicability. This is something that you'll work with the articulation officer on. Again, just because you want something to transfer doesn't mean that it will. You don't determine that. CID, you've probably heard this term, is a course identification number. This is a statewide number used to identify many courses that commonly appear in community colleges across the state. The articulation officer can help guide you in terms of finding a CID number for your course, if there is one. The total lecture hours and lab hours. This, of course, is what goes to determine unit value. Now, here's where we start to get to the interesting stuff for many faculty. The student learning objectives. What are the students going to be able to do upon successful completion of your course? The objectives should start with a verb. These verbs are taken from the Bloom's taxonomy of verbs, which is easily found on the internet. We also have a link to it on CurricuNet itself. Consider that we want to see higher order verbs whenever possible. Do not, and this is important, do not put in particular assignments in the objectives unless that's necessary for outside certification, as sometimes happens in CTE courses. A student learning objective would not be something like writing a 5-paragraph essay on the death penalty. That would be inappropriate. We do not put particular assignments in the objectives. The course outline and scope, which features the outline of topics, reading assignments, writing assignments, appropriate outside assignments, and appropriate assignments that demonstrate critical thinking. This is truly where the rubber hits the road. This is done in an outline form. Generally speaking, CurricuNet already forces you into that. We want to get really no further than third level of detail in the outline of topics. Now, the outline of topics is where you want to be as specific as you can about what is going to be taught in the course. It is a section that instructors must primarily use when creating a syllabus for the course. Other sections are not as detailed. Again, avoid specific classroom activities or assignments, but you may write general ones. Now here's the thing, especially for us today, thinking about curriculum in the lens of equity and excellence. There is a difference between assignments and topics. That is to say, if you have a particular thing that you like to do in class, a lesson plan of yours, some sort of teaching strategy that you have, a particular assignment that you think is going to be very helpful for your subject area, that is not necessarily what's going to go in the outline of topics. Okay? Avoid specific classroom activities. So in the discussions that we have about improving our curriculum in terms of both equity and excellence, you may not need to make any particular changes to the course outline of topics. How you teach those outline of topics may be different, but the topics themselves may stay the same. On the other hand, however, if you're looking at a course and you and your department feels that the course needs to be changed, that new topics need to be added or revised or others need to be taken out, then that does kick in a change to the course outline. Keep that in mind. If you change more than 50% of your course, you actually are creating a new course and you'll have to begin all over. Please work with the curriculum coordinator, Chris Kinney, to avoid problems on this. Methods of evaluation and methods of instruction. These tend to be fairly boilerplate. Again, we don't put in specific tests. We don't put in specific assignments. We don't specify specifically how instruction will work. We might say lecture, discussion, lab, etc., etc., etc. There's some boilerplate, which is pretty much all-encompassing of pretty much anything you might do in a classroom. Required texts and supplies. These should be specific textbooks that the instructors may use. They should have all the appropriate bibliographic information, including the ISBN number. It is important that textbooks be current. Classic texts are allowed if relevant. So if you're working in a subject area that doesn't change a whole lot over time, sometimes the textbooks can be older, and especially in some subject areas where there's not a lot of enrollment, textbook publishers don't change textbooks nearly so often. They don't bring out new editions every 3 to 4 years. They might take longer. On the other hand, in other subject areas where textbooks are constantly being updated, you want to make sure that you have the latest and greatest in your course outline. Supplies refers to anything extra or unusual. You don't think like paper, pen, things of this nature. In some courses, this might include software, though, if students need to have a certain software to do the work in that course. The course report is another document that we have. CurriculNet generates much of the material for the course report automatically. There are a few sections that need to be considered. One of this is the discipline section. Discipline is often very simple. An English class is the English discipline. Other disciplines, however, can be more complex if they're multidiscipline or cross-discipline. Remember, the discipline assigned will determine the min quals for the instructor. So be very, very careful about what disciplines you assign. Avoid, if you can, the use of the word and, because then the faculty must have both. Or can be used if you say, for instance, English or journalism can teach a particular course, right? But the word and is a very, very limiting word. They have to have both sets of minimum qualifications before they teach that particular course.